Does Ghostbusters Afterlife bring this franchise back from the dead, or should it go back in that trap? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk to you about Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is coming to theaters on November 19th, 2021. It is a long time coming. It is the kind of spiritual successor to it's the spiritual and literal successor to the Ghostbusters 1984 movie. It seems like Sony just wants to not acknowledge the last Ghostbusters movie and just kind of move on to this one. And hot take, it's a very, very good film. It's actually much better than I expected it to be. I did not have high expectations going in, and I was very pleasantly surprised. So the hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. It has a lot going for it that you'll like in theaters. It has very big effects. It has a really amazing sound, and especially really good kind of creepy sound as the ghosts appear, and then some very large sound effects as some catastrophes appear. And there's a lot of really great, terrible but really great humor. So if you see it in the theater, I think it's a good overall experience. You'll get the big effects and the big sound, and you'll also get some of that audience participation and a lot of like callbacks to the old Ghostbusters movies. So overall, I think it's definitely a watch. It's a much better film than I thought it would be. But I'm going to go into the film now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the film, a few things I liked about it, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So if you haven't seen it, there will be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out in theaters and then come back and let me know your thoughts as well. Maybe you didn't like it as much as me, or maybe you liked it more. I mean, there were some very, very obscure Ghostbusters Easter eggs in that film that I probably didn't catch. So maybe you can let me know which ones I missed. But so in Ghostbusters Afterlife, you have Callie, who's a single mom who's raising Trevor and Phoebe. Their grandfather dies and leaves them this farm in the middle of nowhere. So they go out to tend to the farm and eventually end up moving there because they're not in the best financial position. So a free house is a free house. So they go out essentially in the middle of nowhere and live in this house. You don't really know what's going on in this house. There's some interesting there's some interesting objects, there's some weird kind of phenomena, and then you find out a little bit later this was actually the house of Egon Spengler. Egon Spengler was Callie's dad and Trevor and Phoebe's grandfather, but he abandoned the family, abandoned kind of everyone, and went to live in the middle of nowhere in this kind of crazy farm compound that he creates. All the local people call him a dirt farmer because he doesn't grow anything on this farm that he has. And he just seems to be a little bit of an eccentric person and kind of cut off from the rest of the world. So that is kind of the setup for this movie. As you would expect, the kids start to find some of the old Ghostbusters stuff. They start to experiment, and then it's a Ghostbusters movie. So and then strange things start to happen, and then chaos ensues. Things I liked about this movie. The first, and this is a strange one for me to say, the sound is really, really good. I think I kind of got it kind of hooked me at the start because it has some pretty good positional audio, especially for some of the spooks in the house. You know, some of the phenomena that happens and some of the strange noises as a ghost is manifesting. Those were all very well done, and so it really kind of gets you into this kind of moment, into a little bit more of the creepy side of Ghostbusters. And then when things get very catastrophic, the sound becomes very big and filling, and I saw it in IMAX, and it definitely felt like the room was shaking. I think the room was shaking. The sound really gives you that big catastrophic feel. So overall, I think the sound contributed a lot to this film, especially at the start. It really kind of got you into the mindset. So the second thing I loved is the writing, and it's mostly just this really wonderful, dry sense of humor that it has. There are some really terrible, essentially dad jokes that Phoebe says, some really good science jokes, and all the characters they all have little funny moments and quips that really kind of keep this film going. And that leads into another aspect I liked, which I'll talk about later. But overall, this is just a very funny film. There's some really good laugh out loud moments and some really terrible but wonderful jokes. The third thing I really loved is the callbacks. There are a lot of callbacks to the 1984 Ghostbusters movie, which is why this is kind of a direct sequel to that film. You see footage from that movie. You see some of the gadgets from that franchise. You see some characters from that franchise as well, and overall you just get the sense, and you hear some catchphrases and some references to characters and things that happen. So overall, this feels like a vehicle to extend the franchise and kind of move it into a new direction, which I really liked. I thought that that was I liked the relation between the two, and I liked that this film really did seem to kind of evolve the overall Ghostbusters formula. And the last thing I really loved is the balance, and this is an interesting one because the film has this nice balance of humor, like really funny, sometimes terrible humor, and then this kind of darker aspects of the Ghostbusters because you're dealing with some scary things and some dark entities. And so the film has a nice balance between those two. You'll have this world ending event, and then you'll have a funny clip, or you'll have this horrible entity appear, and then these, some of the characters will make jokes about it. It's just a really great overall kind of give and take that makes this film just very enjoyable. I guess things I didn't like. I mean, I guess the length. The film is a long movie, although it didn't feel that long, but it definitely is an experience. It's about two. It's a little over 2 hours, so strap in. I actually didn't mind it because it has a really good slow buildup. But then towards the end, it does feel like it goes a little off the rails. But I actually didn't mind it because it has a really good slow buildup. But it is a long movie, so just kind of be prepared for that. The second thing I didn't really love is the CG, especially at the end. I mean, I think this film had overall very good effects. It wasn't that noticeable throughout, but that's mostly because the ghost entities were a little hidden. They didn't come out as much. And then towards the end, when things kind of go off the rails, you get a lot of CG, and some of it is a little bit silly CG. Now, I think that those were some of the entities were in reference to the original Ghostbusters film, so they look a little ridiculous, but that's because they're based on them. And also, I didn't really love the end boss. It's kind of related to the CG. He felt, I think there might have been an actor there, but it felt like maybe he was heavily computer rendered, so it didn't look natural, and it also didn't look scary. Like there are some scary entities in this film. The end boss, I don't know, he didn't really do it for me. So all of that kind of goes into the CG aspects of this movie. So the last thing I didn't love is there's some aspects about the ending that I kind of you have to explain the ending to really get them. So I'm going to talk about the ending now. Again, if you don't want to know about the film, if you don't want to know how it ends, stop watching now. There will be massive spoilers here, but here we go. The weird thing about this town that they're in is that there's a lot of seismic activity. Almost every day there's seismic activity, and it's not near any fault lines. It's not near any volcanoes. So some of the mystery is, why does this happen? Well, we find out that the seismic activity is kind of centered around this old mine shaft in the outskirts of town. So the four friends, both of the children, Phoebe and Trevor, and then Podcast, who is Phoebe's friend, that is a paranormal podcaster. He's a very funny character, and then also Lucky, who is one of Trevor's coworkers, who he has a massive crush on. They all go to the mine to explore, which doesn't seem like a good idea, but hey, you know what? They have to progress the plot. So when they get to the mine, you see that there is this kind of pit that goes, I don't know, into the underworld. I guess it's like they call it the death pit. It seems to be where a lot of things were sacrificed. There's a lot of ghost activity there, and it seems like that pit tries to bubble up every day. But when it does, these automated proton pack cannons shoot the pit and kind of force it down, and that's what causes the seismic activity. You also see in this area, it's like a temple to this old god, and I don't remember what the name of the god was. It was some sort of evil death god, but there it was this kind of temple to this god, and on there are a bunch of numbers on the wall, and they correspond to various supernatural events. So there was 1908, which was some sort of supernatural event. There was 1945, which is World War II. We'll call that supernatural, some sort of horrible event. There was 1984, which is when the original Ghostbusters was. And then there was 2021 when this movie takes place. And I think the last one was 2134. So maybe the next movie will be like some sort of Ghostbusters future. I don't know. It felt weird that there wasn't another year after that, but I guess we'll find out what happens in future movies. I imagine there will probably be new movies. This movie, I think, will do very well. So while the kids are at this mine shaft, one of the kind of nebulous supernatural elements that we've seen throughout the film sneaks back to the old farmhouse, to Spengler's farmhouse, and there it kind of manifests in this fog and then attacks their mom, Callie. You don't know what happens. She just gets attacked. and it switches over. Additionally, there are some strange occurrences at Walmart. I mean, stranger than things that normally occur at Walmart, because here you've got some of the Stay Puft Marshmallow, the really mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men pop up and start attacking people, and then you also have this giant like demon dog at Walmart, and Paul Rudd's character is at Walmart at this time. He sees the dog, he tries to escape, but the dog follows him and attacks him. So now you have Callie who's been attacked and Paul Rudd's character who's been attacked, both about the same time. So the kids get back and they see that Callie the mom is just in the chair, in the same chair where Spengler died. And so she is just kind of slumped over. When they approach, she has this kind of like possessed aspect, like her voice is different, she has red eyes, she's clearly possessed by something. And so they kind of, I think they fight her a little bit, but not much. And then she busts through the window and runs away. This was a strange thing though, because this is also where Spengler died, and it wasn't, I think it was the same entity, because it was the same kind of misty fog thing that happened. So it's strange that Spengler would have died from this and had a heart attack in the film, but the mom would have been just possessed. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't just possess Spengler if it could, and then use him to do the things that later happened with the mom and the other person who's possessed, who is Paul Rudd. But again, it's fine. It's fine. He had to have his death at some point, and it was a good death scene. But it did feel weird if you kind of, it did feel weird in retrospect that he died and the mom was taken over. Maybe he wasn't deemed worthy. I don't know. So, like I said, Paul Rudd is the other possessed character. What we find out is that these dogs don't actually kill the victims, they kind of possess the victims. And so Paul Rudd and Callie the mom are possessed, and they meet up and start to try to release this demon god entity. And so you see Paul Rudd messing with the proton cannons to try to allow this pit to bubble over, and then I guess to release this demon god. So they do that. This kind of explosion of ghosts happen. The town gets a lot of paranormal activity, but luckily the kids are there and they're kind of full-fledged Ghostbusters at this point. So they suit up and they head to the mine shaft and they distract the demon god. So you've in this temple that they were at before, but now there is this like demon thing. I mean, he looks a little strange because he's like in white. It looks like he's wearing kind of like rocks or crystals on him, and it has a normal human face and then kind of like a almost like a skeletal body with like crystals over him. So it just looks a little weird, and like I said, he's a little bit too CG, and also he's not that scary. I kind of expected it to be a little more scary, but that's fine. So they go to this temple and they distract the demon god. Phoebe sits there and tells some really terrible, wonderful jokes. Things like, what do you call a fish with no eyes? Things like that. And if you like that humor, you're going to love it, because there's a lot of that there. If you don't like that humor, well, I'm sorry, but that humor is fantastic. So while she's doing this, the other kids, specifically Podcast, sneaks a trap underneath some of the ghosts. Essentially, you've got the demon god, and then it's two like right hand demon animal things, which is Callie's mom as the gatekeeper, and they're both are in their like dog form here. They kind of transform into dogs after their work is done. So you've got Callie's mom, or you got Phoebe's mom, Callie, as the gatekeeper, and then you've got Paul Rudd's character as the keymaster. And again, I was getting Destiny 2 vibes with that, because I feel like there are raid characters where you have to do that. You have to like distract the gatekeeper, get a weapon from it to then fight the boss. Actually, I think that's Kurto's End. But in any event, that you've got these two entities. It's like right hand demons that help to bring about the end of the world, I assume. But with this trap, they sneak it under the gatekeeper and let the trap go, and that grabs the gatekeeper entity out of Phoebe's mom, Callie, and also seems to grab like a layer of the demon god. Maybe when the gatekeeper goes, maybe that like essentially figuratively pulls off some of the demon god's like skin, but it like loses like an outer layer of skin into this trap. And so with both of them captured, Callie is now free. She's back to normal, and they all run, because that's the smart thing to do when you're pissing off a supernatural powerful entity. So they head back to the house and they use this trap with the gatekeeper in it to try to lure the demon god back to the house. And you saw Spengler do this at the very start. He had this, probably the same entity. It was a similar, at least a similar entity in a trap. He was trying to lure something to his farm. He set up the farm as a massive ghost trap. But what happened there is he kind of got everyone in position, got the entity there, and then tried to spring the trap. But these giant capacitors that he had on his farm failed, and so the trap didn't spring, and that's kind of where he died, because he lured the entity to his house and then couldn't stop it. So we have that situation again. You got Phoebe there with a trap trying to stop this demon creature, and so it gets close. Lucky uses the proton pack to fire at the demon god when it gets close, and then Trevor tries to as well, but his equipment is being damaged by Marshmallow Man, so he can't shoot it. They try to spring the overall trap, but just like earlier when Spengler was there, it doesn't spring. It looks like, and it doesn't spring, and the demon god, breaks free of the proton beam, and it seems like all hope is lost. Except the massive appearance here. You get the 3 remaining original Ghostbusters. So you've got Dan Aykroyd as Dr. Stantz, you've got Ernie Hudson as Dr. Zeddmore, and you've got Bill Murray as Dr. Venkman. And so they show up in their Ghostbusters gear with their packs and fire at the demon creature. Unfortunately, they are not enough. As kind of, it's a great kind of throwback to how Ghostbusters is. They kind of get their streams together, and then, oh no, the demon creature is too strong, and it starts to cross the streams, and they aren't able to do it. So they get kind of, there's like an explosion, and they kind of fall down, and the demon god is getting ready to take them out, because that's what it does. Then all of a sudden, the music swells, and you see Phoebe with her proton pack, with her Spengler outfit, getting ready to fire. And then you have this wonderful kind of Harry Potter type scene where she fires the proton pack, the demon creature shoots its own power, and they meet. And it's just like in Harry Potter when Harry Potter and Voldemort are fighting and their powers meet in the middle. It's that same idea. But you also see a little bit of a additional entity silhouette around Phoebe, and lo and behold, you get the ghost of Spengler. And this was a CG ghost because the original actor died in 2014. So they did a CG ghost to represent him. And it's a very well done ghost. It looks very realistic, very photorealistic. But as you'll see, there were some issues I had with it. But anyway, so that ghost helps, steady the pack, presumably lends some power to it. And then the original Ghostbusters also go and shoot at the demon. And so with the 4 of them, they're holding their own, starting to like get damaged and be contained. And then Trevor finally fixes the pack with the help of Podcast. And so he's ready to fire as well. But then he looks up at the capacitors and remembers that they didn't fire before. So he shoots the capacitors, and that charges them up, which gets the trap ready. And then Callie, the mom, springs the trap, which is essentially an entire field full of ghost traps. And so they all bust open. They start to pull down the different entities that are swarming around, and also pieces of the demon creature all go into the various traps. They all get sucked in, and boom, everyone wins. Everyone's happy. Yay. And I actually loved the cameos. I loved seeing the original Ghostbusters. I thought that was a great touch. And then I liked the Spengler cameo as well. It was weird though, because I kind of feel like they should have gotten a sound alike, because they didn't, I assume to respect the original actor's voice, and like to not put words in his mouth. They didn't have any vocals, but then it just made Ghost Spengler just kind of like, he acknowledged things and he kind of interacted, but he didn't say anything, and it felt a little off. Earlier, it was using objects to tell the story, which makes sense, but now when you kind of see him manifested and they're talking to him, it's weird that he doesn't talk back. I kind of wished that they would have gotten some sort of sound, like just have a few words, like some quips, maybe some of the standard lines. I assume they didn't do that because they wanted to respect Harold Ramis, but again, it did strike me as a little odd. And then also the fact that the demon entity wasn't really that scary, and this weird thing where it killed Spengler but didn't kill the mom. All that kind of led to issues with the ending. But again, don't let that dissuade you. This movie is very, very good, and there are stingers. So there's one stinger at the start of the credits where you have Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver, another character from the movies, and she is trying. Bill Murray is trying to show her his psychic prowess, and it's a very funny scene. There's a little bit of shock therapy there. That was a clever callback. And then at the very end, you kind of get a sense of where this is going to go. So you see a little clip of Spengler, and then it goes really to Zeddmore. And Zeddmore is the one who was successful. He, I guess, started a company, became fabulously wealthy, and he talks about how he was kind of bankrolling the other Ghostbusters lifestyle. Like he was propping up their businesses, but it also shows him kind of reopening the original Ghostbusters station in New York. It kind of opens up the garage, and the car drives in, and it seems like seems like he's going to kind of refund this now that the entities are back. And the film ends with kind of a close-up of the big kind of ghost vault, and at the very top there's a red light blinking, and that's the only light that's on. So presumably either something's bad or something bad is in there. I guess we'll find out in the next Ghostbusters movie. I'm almost certain there will be another Ghostbusters movie, because I imagine this movie will do very, very well. So that is the last stinger. It's at the very end after the credits, so make sure to stick around. It's actually a pretty long scene. It's like I think it's about 5 minutes long, which is pretty big for a stinger. So definitely check it out, and then definitely check out this movie. I thought it was really good. If you're not comfortable going to theaters, I definitely check it out. I think it's really good, and I think it's something that you'll enjoy in theaters, just because it has these really big effects, it has these really big sound, and also just a lot of very funny kind of crowd-pleasing moments. So I think it's a good movie to see in theaters. If you're not comfortable, I'm sure it'll come to digital as well shortly, but it's definitely something you should check out. So that's Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's in theaters November 19th, 2021. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And please check out my other content. I've got other movie reviews, interviews, unboxing videos, and weekly movie recommendations. So thank you so much.